Resident Evil Survivor.
What do you get when you take a beloved and immensely popular series, make a spin-off title with a completely different gameplay style, and forget to include support for the peripheral that it depends on to be playable? You get Resident Evil Survivor, a first-person off-rails light gun game minus the light gun support, released by Capcom for the original PlayStation back in the summer of 2000. See, the Japanese version of the game, and the PAL version for that matter, allowed for the use of the Namco Gun Con, whereas our version had no light gun functionality whatsoever. The game that we got here is still essentially the same game, but with the awkward, forced use of a controller as our only means of meandering through it.
A picture.
The storyline in Survivor is centered around our nameless amnesiac hero, who winds up uncovering a pretty underwhelming mystery throughout the hour or so that it'll take you to finish the game.
I am Vincent. It was all my fault.
I obviously don't want to give too much of the game's storyline away for those of you who are interested in playing through the game after watching this review. The gameplay in this one is pretty simple, all things considered. Remember, this one is technically off-rails, so you can sort of move around freely. Walking and running can be done with the left analog stick, but there's no camera control with the right stick. This, for some reason, is instead used to open and close the menu. The only bit of camera control at your disposal is the autofocus key, which will basically just point you directly at an object of interest, be it an item, a door, or an enemy. As you make your way around Raccoon City, you'll come across various things that would, in all honesty, prefer to see you dead. Shooting at them can be done by bringing up the reticle with R1 and then tapping the X button to shoot. The handgun and its variations have infinite bullets, but for some reason there's no way to manually reload it. You have to fire off all of your shots and wait for the game to auto-reload for you. Weird. Survivor has the kind of weapon assortment that you would come to expect from any Resident Evil game, including pistols, shotguns, grenade launchers, etc. Luckily, the enemies in the game are about as graceful as you are for the most part, and don't really move around too much. It's not difficult to just drop as many bullets as you want into them with little effort. There are a couple, though, that are a major pain in the ass, and that's dogs and spiders. The problem is, you literally can't move fast enough to keep them all targeted. Even with the autofocus key, they'll just continue to chip away at you over and over unless you either run past them or waste precious shotgun shells to dispatch them. The good news is that there are very few enemies in the game that you actually have to kill outside of the bosses, so you can just run like hell past 80% of the enemies throughout the game. When it comes to enemy selection, it's pretty standard Resident Evil fare. You've got zombies aplenty, dogs, hunters, lickers, and the oh-so-annoying bullet receptacles, the Mr. X's. Seriously, I roll my eyes whenever I see one. They take upwards of 15 to 20 handgun shots, and you have to continuously run to either side of them and shoot like crazy to take them down. Well, at least they drop ammo for the most part. Another thing that you'll be tasked with is finding certain items and keys to progress, and you really don't have to worry about inventory management like in the earlier games. When you come across a key or a file, etc., the game just picks it up and you have it. That's it. Other consumable items can be used or combined in the item menu, just like most every other game in the series up to this point. One unique feature in Survivor are the branching paths that you'll take in order to change the storyline and the characters that you'll interact with. In a few sections, you'll be asked to choose which area you want to tackle next, and that can end up deciding how events end up unfolding. Once you choose, you're stuck with it too, being that your key usually breaks after entering the door, or there just ends up being no way back.
The clean unit sent by Umbrella to destroy the evidence of this biohazard.
It's a pretty cool element and does help to add some replayability to the game, if not just to see all of the different possibilities. Graphically, Resident Evil Survivor looks like a PS1 game, and I don't mean that in a good way. It's blurry and washed out, and the textures are pretty ugly overall. Some of the monsters look decent, and there are a couple of nice looking areas here and there, but most of it is overly dark and tough to look at. Not that I blame the game per se, but the 32-bit generation is just one that hasn't aged very well over the years. The sound and music is kind of mixed in this one. The music is actually pretty great in the small assortment of areas where there is some. Unfortunately, most of the game is fairly silent. The sound effects are alright, but there's not much here that's terribly interesting or memorable. Is Resident Evil Survivor a bad game? Well, yeah, to be honest, it is. Quite frankly, it's the worst kind of bad game, too, one that had the potential to be really good. There's nothing more disheartening in gaming than bearing witness to a plethora of missed opportunities. This spin-off could have worked, and it did to an extent later on with its sequels, but excluding light gun support from a game that's reliant on it was a terrible idea to begin with. It's still kind of a cool novelty game to play through if you're a big fan of the series in general, and it won't cost you more than $10 to $15 complete online. I can't say that it's worth playing for any other reason than sheer curiosity or some interest in the storyline and how it ties into the other games. I ended up beating the game twice just to get enough varying footage for this review, and I honestly don't see myself playing through it again anytime soon.
I know that this was no way for anyone to die. What?
As always, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching and subscribing, and until next time, stay classic.
Get down!